Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Holden spills the whole dirty secret about Claire's pregnancy, and what unfolds shakes every corner of Genoa City as if someone grabbed the entire town and slammed it against a wall of truth so brutal, so twisted, so emotionally explosive that even the most hardened Newman, Abbott, and Chancellor hearts freeze in place, refusing to believe what their ears are hearing as Holden, trembling, gasping, eyes wild with the weight of months of secrets, finally breaks under the pressure, unleashing a revelation so devastating that it does not merely alter relationships, it detonates them, leaving smoking emotional rubble where families once stood, because from the moment he opens his mouth, nothing will ever be the same again. And it all starts in that dimly lit corner of society where Claire has been nervously pacing for nearly 20 minutes, unaware that Holden is watching her from the shadows, running a hand through his hair, whispering to himself that he cannot do this anymore, cannot carry the burden, cannot protect her from the consequences of what really happened, and as she turns, her eyes meet his and she knows instantly. Something has snapped inside him, something beyond fear, beyond guilt, beyond the tangled web of lies they've woven together since the night everything went wrong, and before she can speak, before she can drag him deeper into the secrecy they promised each other they would maintain, he blurts out, loud enough that a table of horrified onlookers nearly drops their glasses, "It's time you told them what you did." And Claire freezes because she knows there's no walking this back, not when Holden's voice cracks like thunder through the room, drawing Victor Newman's icy stare from across the dining area, pulling Nikki's hand to her chest, making Nick rise from his seat with concern twisting through his brow. And suddenly the entire restaurant holds its breath as Holden stumbles forward, muttering, "I can't protect you anymore, Claire, they deserve to know." And Victor's voice, cold as a winter storm, cuts through the air. "Know what?" And Holden collapses into a chair, burying his face in his hands, shaking as Claire's heart pounds so violently she swears it might burst from her ribs, because she had prayed, begged, bargained with fate for this moment never to arrive, and yet here it is. Her worst nightmare crawling out of Holden's mouth in real time as he looks up, tears streaming, and whispers the words that will echo through the Newman universe for years. "Claire's pregnancy, the baby, it isn't what she told you, it's not Kyle's, it's not Holden's, it's not any of yours, it's something so much darker." And Nikki nearly faints as she grips the back of a chair, while Victor steps closer, fury and confusion coiling through him like a serpent, demanding answers with a single look, and Claire's voice trembles as she says, "Holden, please don't." But Holden is beyond stopping. He has crossed the invisible line between silence and truth, and now the truth pours out of him like a dam burst open after years of pressure, and he begins explaining the night they've both tried desperately to forget, the night at that isolated cabin where Claire had been hiding, spiraling emotionally after everything that happened with Jordan, her identity, her relationships, her entire sense of belonging completely shattered, and Holden had been there to watch over her, to keep her safe from reporters, stalkers, and her own self-destruction, and then something unexpected happened, something neither of them ever intended. A stranger arrived, someone Claire had never met, someone Holden had been secretly contacting for months, someone he thought could help Claire heal emotionally but instead ended up dragging her into a deeper pit of trauma. And as Victor's jaw tightens, as Nick inches closer like a lion preparing to pounce, as Summer, who just walked in and heard the last line, covers her mouth in horror, Holden reveals that the father of Claire's baby is a man tied directly to the remnants of Jordan's cult-like network, a man who had been manipulating Claire mentally for weeks, a man who saw in her vulnerability the perfect opportunity to seed chaos inside the Newman family, because this pregnancy was not an accident, it was a plot, a weapon, a calculated act meant to destabilize the family that Jordan spent years trying to destroy, and Holden chokes as he admits he let this man near Claire, that he trusted him, that he believed the lies about therapy and healing and emotional guidance, never realizing the sinister motives beneath the surface, and Claire, sobbing, tries to interrupt, tries to scream that it wasn't like that she didn't even know what had happened until days later, that she never consented to any plan, that she had been drugged, manipulated, mentally twisted until she couldn't distinguish reality from the lies being fed to her. And Nikki gasps in horror as Victor's eyes blaze with a fury so deep it shakes the room, while Nick's fists clench hard enough his knuckles turn bone white, and Summer collapses into a chair whispering, "Oh my God, Claire?" As Holden continues, revealing that the pregnancy was meant to be the final piece in a revenge strategy engineered by the last loyal remnants of Jordan's twisted legacy, a group Holden had unknowingly cooperated with because they disguised themselves as mental health advocates, exploiting his desperation to help Claire, tricking him into believing they were there to repair the damage Jordan had done when in truth, they were merely continuing her work from the shadows, using Claire as a pawn, using her trauma as a tool, using her body as a vessel to insert chaos right into the heart of the Newmans. And as this revelation rips through the room, Claire falls to her knees, hyperventilating, shouting that she didn't know, she didn't want this, she never wanted any of this, that she only lied about the baby's father because she was terrified no one would believe the truth, terrified the Newmans would think she was still tied to Jordan's madness, terrified they would send her away, abandon her, cut her out of the family just when she finally started to feel like she belonged. And Nikki rushes to her, torn between heartbreak and disbelief, whispering, "Why didn't you come to us? Why didn't you trust us?" And Claire sobs harder, whispering, "Because I didn't trust myself." While Holden continues unraveling the story of how he discovered the deception too late, realized the plot after the pregnancy had already been confirmed, and ever since then had been trying to shield Claire, hoping he could cut ties with the remaining members of Jordan's network quietly, hoping he could take the fall if anything came out, hoping he could fix what was broken without exposing Claire to the shame and the trauma of reliving what happened. But when he learned that one of Jordan's former operatives had resurfaced in Genoa City, looking for Claire, ready to claim his role in the pregnancy as leverage against Victor Newman, Holden panicked, and now, unable to hide the truth any longer, he confesses everything in one explosive, breathless stream, while Victor looms over him like a storm about to unleash lightning, demanding the man's name, demanding locations, demanding every detail Holden can provide because no one uses a Newman, especially a vulnerable young woman trying to rebuild her life, and gets away with it. And Claire collapses into Nikki's arms as the weight of the truth suffocates her, while Summer, shattered and furious, screams that Kyle deserves to know immediately that the baby was never his, that Claire lied to his face, that she strung everyone along with a false sense of hope. And although Nikki begs her to calm down, to see Claire's pain, to recognize the trauma at play, Summer's anger only intensifies as she storms out of the restaurant vowing to tell Kyle everything herself, and Holden, still trembling, whispers that the man who manipulated Claire is already on the move, already circling, already preparing to use the pregnancy as a weapon to extract money, power, or something far darker from the Newmans. And Victor, eyes narrowed with lethal intent, declares that he will handle this personally. Because if this man thinks he can exploit Claire, exploit trauma, exploit an unborn child to settle some twisted score, then he has no idea what war he has just started. And as Victor marches out of society with Nick close behind, ready to track down the man who orchestrated this nightmare, Claire sits shaking, broken, lost, whispering over and over that she is sorry, that she didn't know, that she never meant to hurt anyone. And Nikki holds her tight, whispering assurances even though her own heart is splintering, because while she wants to protect Claire, she also knows the fallout of this revelation will be catastrophic. Kyle will be shattered. Summer will be vengeful. Diane and Jack will be dragged into the storm. And the entire fragile balance between the Abbotts and Newmans will be thrown into violent chaos the moment the truth spreads. And Holden, guilt-ridden and destroyed, whispers the last shocking detail. The father isn't just a random operative from Jordan's network. He is someone with a long-standing vendetta against the Newmans, someone who once tried to infiltrate their business empire, someone who disappeared years ago but apparently resurfaced under a new identity, someone dangerous enough that Holden has been living in fear ever since he discovered the truth. And as the name forms on his lips, Claire screams for him to stop, because once that name is spoken aloud, the past will explode into the present with unstoppable force. And just as Holden begins to say it, Victor bursts back through the doors, demanding it himself, ready to burn the world down to protect his family, and Holden, trembling, finally whispers the name so quietly that at first no one reacts. And then Nikki gasps, Claire collapses, and Victor's face turns into something colder than death as the full horror of the truth settles over everyone, and the dominoes begin to fall in ways no one can stop, no one can predict, and no one will ever forget as the entire town realizes that Claire's pregnancy is not just a scandal. It is a ticking time bomb that Holden has finally detonated with one explosive confession that will reshape the young and the restless forever. The shockwave of Holden's revelation does not merely ripple through the Newman and Abbott families, It detonates like an emotional earthquake across Genoa City, leaving everyone reeling, scrambling, and grasping for answers that seem impossibly out of reach as whispers spread from society to the GC Athletic Club, from Crimson Lights to Newman Enterprises, with every citizen who even remotely knows Claire suddenly looking at her differently, with suspicion, with fear, with pity, while she sits in Nikki's arms trembling uncontrollably, realizing that the web of lies she thought she could control has not only unraveled but collapsed entirely, exposing her to scrutiny, judgment, and an unprecedented storm of family fury, because now the baby she carries is no longer a private secret, no longer a symbol of hope or love or even an accident, but a weapon, a symbol of betrayal, a living proof that deception can thrive even in the most unsuspecting hearts. And as Victor paces back and forth in the back room of society, his fists clench so tight that veins stand out across his hands, the fury building inside him like a volcano ready to erupt, he demands the complete truth, every detail, every manipulation, every lie, and Holden, exhausted, shaking, guilt-stricken beyond words, recounts everything. The late-night meetings with the shadowy operative, the careful planning meant to isolate Claire emotionally, the small manipulations that slowly eroded her ability to discern truth from lies, the nights he tried to shield her but failed, the fear that he carried silently while pretending that nothing was wrong, all culminating in the revelation of the man's identity and the knowledge that this individual has been moving undetected through Genoa City, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and the moment has arrived, because Holden's confession has pulled the rug out from under every carefully laid plan, exposing Claire, exposing Victor, exposing every Newman to potential chaos, betrayal, and unimaginable danger. And while Victor's mind races for retaliation, for strategy, for an immediate solution, Nick steps forward, fists still white from clenching, jaw tight with barely contained rage, looking directly at Claire with a mix of hurt, disbelief, and protective instinct, because while Holden has explained the manipulation, while Victor understands the threat, Nick feels the sting of personal betrayal, a wound so deep it threatens to fracture his own morality as he wonders how Claire could hide such a monumental secret from him, how she could claim Kyle was the father, how she could risk the trust of the family and their friends, and Claire, racked with guilt, begs for understanding, her voice cracking as she explains that it was fear, it was confusion, it was manipulation that drove her to lie, that every step she took was a desperate attempt to protect herself and everyone around her. And while some hearts soften, others harden, because in Genoa City, secrets have a way of leaving scars that never fully heal, and Holden, watching Claire crumble, realizes that he is partly to blame, that his initial trust in the wrong people set off a chain reaction that has now reached catastrophic proportions, and while he wants to comfort her, he also knows that his own mistakes are now a public burden, and the operative they once underestimated, now fully aware that the truth is out, is already moving into position, preparing to leverage the situation for power, revenge, and profit, while Victor, Nikki, and Nick scramble to predict the operative's next move. Calling in old contacts, former detectives, and even shady private investigators, desperate to gain the upper hand before the manipulator can strike, and as word spreads, Diane and Jack get involved, their own agendas complicating the situation further, because Jack is furious that Claire would lie, that Holden would keep such an explosive secret, while Diane fears that Victor's wrath might spiral into reckless decisions, and both of them understand that the exposure of this pregnancy could destabilize not only the Newman family but the Abbotts and Chancellors as well, given their intertwined histories and long-standing rivalries, and as the tension escalates, Summer, fueled by a combination of anger and concern for her brother Kyle, confronts Claire directly, demanding to know why she lied, why she allowed Holden to protect her instead of coming forward herself, why she jeopardized everyone's trust, and Claire, collapsing under the intensity of the confrontation, sobs uncontrollably, explaining that the manipulator's threats and psychological games left her paralyzed with fear, unable to reach out without risking the baby and herself, that the pregnancy was intended to control her, that every choice she made was a desperate act of survival, and while some in the room soften, recognizing trauma and coercion, others, particularly Kyle's closest friends, seethe with betrayal, feeling the rug has been pulled out from under them, that their trust was weaponized against them, and that now, with the truth laid bare, no relationship can ever return to what it was, not even partially, because secrets of this magnitude redefine alliances, loyalties, and identities, and the operative, emboldened by Holden's confession, begins executing the next phase of the plan, moving through the city undetected, planting misinformation, leveraging allies, and waiting for Victor and his family to make a misstep, while Holden and Claire are left to navigate the treacherous emotional terrain that has exploded around them. And every interaction, every conversation, every glance now carries the weight of betrayal, danger, and impending catastrophe. And as Victor mobilizes his contacts, calling in favors from old adversaries turned temporary allies, as Nikki and Nick strategize, balancing immediate protection with long-term security, as Diane and Jack attempt to mediate the chaos while guarding their own interests, as Summer threatens to go public, Kyle hurt and betrayed, and Claire battling fear, guilt, and the physiological and emotional toll of pregnancy under such stress, the city itself seems to shudder under the weight of the revelation, because a pregnancy, a secret, a manipulator's plot has become a focal point for a convergence of personal, familial, and corporate rivalries, threats, and vendettas that could erupt at any moment, and every character is now forced into action, confrontation, or defense, and Holden, racked with guilt, vows to stay by Claire's side, to protect her from the operative, to make amends for his part in enabling the situation, while simultaneously recognizing that his confession has triggered an unstoppable chain of events that will engulf them all in unforeseen consequences. And as they strategize, the operative watches, knowing that Holden's transparency has given them insight into the family's vulnerabilities, and planning the perfect time to strike, a time when fear, mistrust, and raw emotion have peaked. And in the midst of this chaos, Claire must confront her own feelings of shame, fear, and love, reconciling the fact that the baby she carries is both a target and a symbol, both a burden and a potential catalyst for healing, as she faces the full reality of what Holden's confession has unleashed, while Victor, Nikki, Nick, and the rest of the family prepare for a confrontation that will test not only their courage but their loyalty, morality, and capacity for forgiveness, and the tension escalates to almost unbearable levels as multiple players maneuver for advantage, old secrets intersect with new revelations, and everyone realizes that in Genoa City, one explosive truth has the power to topple empires, redefine legacies, and leave scars that may never fully heal, while Claire and Holden cling to each other amid the storm, knowing that survival requires trust, courage, and an unbreakable bond. And as night falls over the city, the darkness feels heavier than ever, because the revelation of the pregnancy is no longer just a personal matter. It is now a weapon, a leverage point, a threat to everyone, and every heartbeat, every glance, every whispered plan is a countdown toward a collision that could change the young and the restless forever, leaving viewers breathless, hearts pounding, and desperate for the next chapter in this twisted, emotionally charged saga of secrets, lies, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of truth, love, and justice in the city that never sleeps, the city that now watches with bated breath. As Claire's pregnancy, Holden's confession, and the manipulator's shadow converge into an inevitable, shocking confrontation that will leave no one untouched, no relationship unscathed, and no future secure, as every character must confront the consequences of choices made in fear, deception, and desperation. And as the story unfolds, the stakes escalate to a level never before seen, because the dirty secret of Claire's pregnancy is not just a revelation. It is a catalyst for chaos, a mirror reflecting the deepest vulnerabilities of every character, and a ticking time bomb whose impact will reverberate through Genoa City long after the initial shock has faded, ensuring that Holden's confession, once whispered in a moment of desperation, will echo across every corner of the young and the restless, changing everything forever. As the truth about Claire's pregnancy settles over Genoa City like a suffocating fog, every interaction becomes charged with tension, suspicion, and raw emotion, and Claire, still trembling in Nikki's arms, realizes that the fallout will not be confined to family arguments or whispered confrontations. This secret has the power to reshape alliances, destroy trust, and alter the trajectory of every life it touches, because the manipulator Holden revealed is still at large, watching, waiting, and calculating, and the Newmans, Abbotts, and Chancellors are all caught in a high-stakes game where every misstep could have catastrophic consequences, while Holden, racked with guilt, vows silently to do everything possible to protect Claire and the baby, even if it means facing threats alone, even if it means exposing himself to danger in ways he never anticipated. And as Victor mobilizes resources, Nick braces for confrontations, and Summer plots to inform Kyle, Claire feels the weight of Isolation, shame, and fear pressing down on her like never before, knowing that the world will never see her the same way, and that the moment Holden spoke the words, the fragile illusion of safety shattered completely, leaving nothing but the harsh glare of truth, the uncertainty of the future, and the undeniable fact that the entire city is about to be swept into the storm unleashed by one explosive confession.